just mix it up every meeting.
Used to being right there, so I've always. That's fine if you want me on the end. I'm glamorous.
That's right, and I'm not.
Just be glamorous.
What are you trying to say
Be
about me?
glamorous.
Hey, by the way, I meant to tell you that you look so nice yesterday with your red and your. I meant to tell you before you went to talk.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Marsha, right?
Yes, yeah.
How would they fix it?
I don't know. I just said let me pick it up. So I hate the roll. I hate the roll bag.
I thought they were the old ones when it broke.
When it did.
Even better than this one. It's been wild. My wife is right. Big bluebird. I'm worried about how much life she said I feel safe. Just flying through the
Dr. Highland?
Yes, ma'am.
So my little one is sick. My little one is sick. My husband had oral surgery today. And it's supposed to ice over, so let's not prolong this show.
Well, I'll tell you what. I've got a four-wheel drive truck here. If you need to, I'll just take all of you home. I'll pile up in my truck and I'll take you home.
I'm trying to get home before we get to that point, Dr. Highland.
I've got plenty of diesel fuel in that big truck. And I'll stack you all in there and take you home.
That's expensive, diesel.
Not like a year friend.
Hey, I make a lot of money on school, you know?
Yeah, well, he did. You know what, maybe because
Athletes, and by the end of the year, it's amazing how much they improve.
I'll tell you how real fast.
Good. How's it going? All right.
I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. Ms. Ford, will you call the roll?
Chairman Wingate,
Here.
Vice Chairman Smith,
Yes.
Dr. Highlander,
Here.
Mrs. Hill,
Here.
Mrs. Jones,
Here.
Mrs. Lennon,
Here.
Mr. McClendon,
Here.
Mrs. Robinson,
Here.
Mrs. Thurman,
Here.
Mr. Taylor,
Here.
Superintendent Dr. Johnson.
Here. Okay, I've got some amendments here to the agenda, if you'll pay attention to these. Under delegations, add Kendra Young and John DeVore, Heather Mudrow, and Alan Hintz. Then down under board matters, so Roman numeral 11. Item B, we're going to remove the interlocal agreement between Hamilton County Schools and the City of East Ridge concerning the athletic facilities. And then add in that same place the widening for the easement on Ferdinand Peak Way. And then under events and announcements, add item F, the partnership network meeting, which will take place at Dalewood Middle School at 5 o'clock on March the 10th. Ms. Ford, did I get all of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson, Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, next on our agenda is consideration of renewing Dr. Johnson's contract. Do we have a motion to approve? So move. Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's Smith and McClendon.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Did you get it, Ms. Ford?
Yes, sir.
All right, any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
No, I'm trying to turn off, sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thurman?
Yes, I would like to make a motion, please. I would like to make a motion to delay the vote of Dr. Johnson's contract until our September the 17th board meeting.
Okay. Do we need to go ahead and work on that motion before any other discussion?
Needs a second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that matter? Go ahead, Mrs. Thurman.
Okay. Well, the reason for this is Tennessee Code Annotated 49-2-203 A14A states that no school board may enter into a contract with any director of schools during a period extending from 45 days prior to the general school election until 30 days following such election. We had this discussion the other night, and it just dawned on me, the very reason we're doing this is to circumvent this law. We had that discussion the other night that we couldn't discuss his contract because it would be right in the middle of this blackout period here. The very reason that this law was written is to prevent exactly what we're doing tonight. We are voting to extend a contract that's really not even due for renewal yet, to extend a contract for a new board that may be seated in August. I have no idea how the school board election will go, but it's to prevent an incoming board to have a be faced with a 4-year contract of a superintendent that they didn't get a chance to vote for. And we are circumventing that law by doing this. I find it highly offensive. Maybe nobody else does, but that is the only reason given the other night for the reason we were doing this. And that's what the law says, and we're doing that. We may not be violating the law, but we certainly are violating the spirit of that law by doing this. And that was the only reason given at our agenda session the other night for doing this now is because we did a lot of discussion about how you could fit it in around an election date. And so I just think we need to wait till September the 18th. We really weren't supposed to even start discussing it till June or July anyway. And it would take a couple of months to get a new contract written up as it did this time. And it would have been September anyway if we had waited. So that's my reasoning.
Any other discussion? Right, so we need to vote on that motion, right?
Yeah.
You ready? Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
No.
Mrs. Jones,
No.
Mrs. Lennon,
No.
Mr. McClendon,
No.
Mrs. Robinson,
No.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
No. All right, so motion fails. All right, so back to the original motion. Mrs. Robinson.
Sure. I just wanted to verify that based on Monday's conversation, that we did not have any edits to the contract. Just want to make sure nothing, I did not miss anything. Okay,
I haven't come up with it.
great. I didn't think so, but I just wanted to verify.
Mrs. Jones.
I think Kathy's like.
Oh, sorry, Mrs. Lennon.
Sorry. I was not able to be at the meeting on Monday, and I just wanted to be able to say, and I'm sure that it's been said before, that how important that it is that I really feel strong about how leadership matters in Hamilton County, and that I know that everything that I'm going to say has been said before, but I'm going to echo it again. The school board was charged with hiring a strong leader in 2017, and we did. We hired Dr. Brian Johnson. This contract is, this contract is a sign that we want him here. Dr. Johnson has devoted his time, his energy to education in our community. He's demonstrated leadership, strong leadership and commitment and courage. He acknowledges that there's challenges. How many people acknowledge that we have challenges to overcome? Tough challenges. It's not easy. He sees them. He talks to the team about it. But he sees these challenges as opportunities, and he addresses them. He believes in public education. He's taken public education in Chattanooga, Tennessee to a higher level. You know, it's been a long time that has been done. Who else has done this in Chattanooga with public education? We have a strategic plan. We have great leaders and great teachers in Hamilton County. We have Future Ready 2023. I'm very proud of what we have in Hamilton County. I'm very proud of the direction that we are going because of our leader and Dr. Brian Johnson. So I hope that when we invest in our future, we're investing in our kids. And it's about our kids. And that's what Dr. Brian Johnson does. It's about the kids.
Mrs. Jones.
On Monday night, I did express at the end of our agenda session my thoughts on what we were about to do tonight, and I really have been processing that. And I want to go on record for stating that what my support will be of this going forth in a few minutes in a vote is because although I struggle with us as a board not holding up to fidelity in what we've said, I don't feel like it's a big enough risk to take to lose a leader and to lose the support that he has working beside him and the morale that our teachers have are experiencing and our students are having in their buildings to not vote in support of this. And so while I struggle with not keeping up to what we said in our initial contract, I feel like the risk that I'm taking in my vote will help to secure or further secure the amazing future that our students here in Hamilton County are going to have because of the work that is being done by our director of schools and his executive cabinet, like I said, of course, and everybody else that falls as that community of Hamilton County Schools is shown. He's come, I mean, he's rebranded us. I had to tell a lady the other day, she was talking about HCD, and I'm like, what's that? We're we're HCS. And so I just think we're on the right trajectory, and I think it would be a disservice to our children, who are our most important asset, to not support this. And what Rhonda says, maybe, I mean, clearly it's true. I mean, that's what the Tennessee Code annotated says. But I think if we wait, because Dr. Johnson has exhibited skill sets of those that run Fortune 500 companies, that we could easily lose him to a Unum. Something as local as a Unum. I'm just being honest. I mean, Rhonda can laugh. I mean, I like a good joke.
Yeah.
But
They're looking for somebody with an education degree.
just like you was looking for one with a business degree.
That's right.
However,
Still am.
he does. But nevertheless, while I was interrupted, nevertheless, I just want to say that I think that we have to do what is right for kids, and to do what is right for kids is not always the most conventional thing. I think we as a board should also, in doing whatever we do in this next vote or execution of a vote, we need to look at what we do in the future in creating contracts, so that maybe we need to look at how we word the verbiage in contracts so that we don't run into this again. And I know initially that would not have been the case, but we are running into this. So maybe we need to look at maybe addressing that from a more merit or performance standpoint versus a time standpoint. I mean, I know there are other ways we can look at contracts, but I just want to say that going forward, so that we don't run into this again, and we're not put into a pickle that some may feel we're in now, including myself. To go forward. So I just want to express that maybe we can just look at that from a greater perspective. I know the intent was for us not to be here, Dr. Highlander and Scott, but I think maybe in the next pursuance of a contract, we may need to look at that a little deeper, to how we need to word that so we don't have this experience.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I'm going to go way out on a limb here and say that I don't think the children of Hamilton County really care whether we give Dr. Johnson a raise or not. So I'm sorry, but for the children really don't care whether he gets more money. We still have him. He still has a contract for another year and a half. He's doing all these great and wonderful things. He's still under contract to do those great and wonderful things for another year and a half. Also, we always want public input on everything the way they feel. I don't know if you've heard or not, but it is overwhelming from the public that they do not want us to do this. And most of the things that I've got in support of Dr. Johnson, I will tell you right now, have been from teachers, or my daughter's a teacher, or my granddaughter's a teacher, or my grandson's a teacher, or I'm a teacher, I've done this, I've done that. Most of the people that wrote this were going to be beneficiaries of either a raise or of something else that wanting to keep Dr. Johnson. Now, I'm just telling you, I'm out in the public. I've worked for the public for 44 years. I'm not in a cocoon in the school setting like most of you are. I hear what people say out in the community. So you can shake your head all you want to, but I'm telling you it's the truth. Look at Chattanooga.com poll and other polls that are taken, and that's with all the teachers getting on there and voting as well. I have had calls from especially a 9-year-old gentleman that called me right before I came to the school system. I wouldn't want to say his name, but and I mean, he was just to the point. He said, "I just can't take anymore, Rhonda. You keep giving these people, you keep giving the superintendent and all these administrators raises. I'm not going to be able to afford my property tax." I mean, this is the way they look at it, and this is where we're headed anyway. But anyway, the overwhelming, and I will say it again, public do not support this. And like I say, we want public input on everything we do. Where we build schools, where we put sidewalks, we have a community meeting for everything, but we've yet to have a community meeting about this. And without school personnel there, people that are not going to be beneficiaries of it. So, but anyway, like I say, I just don't understand why we're doing this a year and a half early. Well, I do understand, because it's the election thing that we're trying to circumvent the law. And it's very troubling to me. And we're also violating our very contract that we wrote with him. We keep talking about all these great and wonderful things. Well, he agreed to the contract that we have, that we would not discuss this till a year out. And now we're going back on that. Also, in this contract that he has now, he can't go out and earn money on our time. And this contract is allowing him to do that. So You know, there's a lot of things in this that's not in this contract that was in the other contract, and they say we're going to police what he does. I don't know how you're going to police it. I don't have time to police him. Maybe somebody else does. I don't. But anyway, that's just my feelings about it. There's absolutely no reason why we should be entertaining this right now. There's absolutely no reason for it, except for that one reason, to get around the law that a new board will not be able to pick their own superintendent. It's wrong.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you. I said Monday evening, I'll repeat it now. I feel like Dr. Johnson is a person of integrity, and I don't believe he's going to leave us high and dry and violate his contract. I really don't. There are a lot of good things that are going on in Hamilton County that I am very proud of. I doubt very seriously that anyone here has spent more time in the classroom than I have for the last 47 years. And no one cares more about the children than I do. And Dr. Johnson cares about children, and I know he does. One of our board members, I wasn't going to say the name, but she pretty well laid it out. She talked about the fidelity of the agreement, the fidelity of the contract. And I thought about that and prayed about it Monday night, and I agree with what she said, the fidelity of the contract. When we make an agreement, we stick to it. My grandfather taught me you shake hands and you keep your word. And I am fully open to this very same contract, and that's why I seconded Ms. Thurman's motion, because I'm fully agreement to discussing this very same discussion in September, but I think that would be in line with agreement of the contract. And if you all feel differently, I will honor you and will not be angry, and I will be happy to go along and work with whatever transpires. But I would like to maintain the fidelity of the contract.
Ms. Hill.
So like Kathy, I wasn't able to be here on Monday, though I did watch all of you on Facebook Live. And you all know that sometimes I talk for a long time, so that would have just made that meeting longer. So, but I've thought a lot about this, and I want to make sure that I say what I want to say, so I actually wrote it down. So forgive me if I read a little bit. Before I get started, though, I did notice Commissioner Jeter is here with us tonight. Thank you for being here. Do we have any other commissioners in the room? Anybody? All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. Also, there's some feedback that I've gotten about Dr. Johnson that I want to share with all of you, especially given just the order of the agenda here. Please vote to extend Dr. Johnson's contract. Let's be sure to keep him here to implement the strategic plan that is in place, to continue to build momentum in exciting new programs for our children, and to boost confidence in our schools. He's the right person to inspire, motivate, and lead Hamilton County Schools! ! We are lucky to have him! ! Please vote yes, all caps, to an early extension of Dr. Johnson's contract. As the parent of a Hamilton County teacher, the grandparent of 2 Hamilton County students, and a Hamilton County resident, I think you would have to live under a rock or never spend a full day in a Hamilton County school to not see the difference Dr. Johnson has made in our school system. He is hardworking, progressive, and frankly, not afraid of the good old boy network that has permeated our school board, city, and county commissions for way too long. It is time that these elected officials quit seeing a political boogie bear behind every effort to make the schools better and focus on doing what is right for our kids, our teachers, and our support staff in every school, and getting behind the best superintendent the system has had in the last 15 years or longer would be a great start. Under Dr. Johnson's leadership, we became the fastest improving school district in the state of Tennessee. He saw the potential in our school system and drew out the best in us. He is working tirelessly to help us achieve our full potential. I believe this is because Dr. Johnson is focused on kids. He did not come to Chattanooga to be inactive, and he is willing to have courageous conversations, even if it makes people uncomfortable. With urgency, Dr. Johnson reorganized how we use data so it is meaningful to teachers and moves instruction forward. He amplified what is going well, reduced variability in the quality of instruction, and improved communication to all stakeholders. As a direct result of Superintendent Brian Johnson's focus on teaching and learning, we all have clear learning targets, and we've grown in our understanding of how to teach to the depth and demand of the standards. Throughout the last 3 years, Dr. Johnson has strategically built capacity by equipping and empowering educators. He knows how to think strategically and which levers will improve outcomes for all students. Remarkably, he makes time to attend small group sit-downs with the superintendent where he has conversations with teachers. I am impressed with how Dr. Johnson has prioritized for results by first addressing the people, students, and educators, and how now he is moving on to the facilities aspect. Our students have demonstrated unprecedented growth in Hamilton County since Dr. Johnson took the helm in 2017. And make no mistake, I firmly believe that this improved student learning is a direct result of his compelling leadership. Will you please offer Superintendent Dr. Brian Johnson a new contract? And one more before I say what I think. Your vote is about investing in talent. It is about investing in someone who has demonstrated leadership, commitment, courage, and an aptitude for recognizing tough challenges and addressing them as opportunities. The vote to extend his contract is about imagining what is possible for our community when we believe a great public school system is imperative to our future and ensuring we have the right leadership in place to get there. So, I have spent my career in for-profit business, not nonprofit business, for-profit business. And I have always seen my employees as members of a team. And as such, we work together to reach common goals that are set by the leadership of the company. Now, I often hear that our school system should be run more like a business, and I agree. You all hear that too?
Yes.
All the time? Yeah.
Yes, and this is a move that a business would make.
Now, while not every business concept aligns with educating students, much of the success we have earned, and we have earned it in Hamilton County in the last year, reflects the practices and values of private business. And I appreciate Dr. Johnson's commitment to driving that change. Thank you, Brian. In private business, for-profit business, when an employee delivers on the goals set by leadership, the higher-ups are pleased. Someone recently said to me, when you meet your goals, it's not controversial. People are happy. When an employee mightily exceeds expectations, in private business, we look at that employee's compensation. Why? Two main reasons. Number one, talented people are a business's single most important asset. And smart business people invest in talent. Number two, we are a capitalist society, and money is a way that we demonstrate respect and appreciation for a job well done. Dr. Johnson has by every standard exceeded expectations. He earned a 4.25 on the board's last employee evaluation. That is higher than any superintendent review in recent history. I applaud those of you on this board who voted to hire Dr. Johnson, and I see it as my responsibility as a member of this board today to strategically invest in talent to provide for continuity of leadership through 2024. Dr. Johnson believes in Hamilton County schools. And sometimes I think he believes in us more than we believe in ourselves. He has the vision, smarts, leadership skills, work ethic, curiosity, and selflessness to lead a staff of 6,000 people to achieve more than they ever thought possible. In my work in private, for-profit business, I aim to always treat my staff with respect and kindness, and I will do no less in this public space. Dr. Johnson can choose to work anywhere, and today he chooses to work here for the benefit of our students. And frankly, for the benefit of all of Hamilton County. There is no one that we could invite to a community meeting that would not benefit from improved public education in Hamilton County. Hamilton County schools are the envy of the state, the entire state of Tennessee. The school boards get together and they gasp at what our leaders and teachers and students have achieved by working so thoughtfully together. So I want to acknowledge that and again say thank you to Dr. Johnson. Brian, I hope that you will choose our students tomorrow, and I hope you will choose them the next day, and I hope that you will choose them for many years to come. I do believe, Brian, that the work that you are doing is creating a better future for an entire generation of students. That's very important work. And tonight, I will vote to respect and honor that work.
Ms. Robinson.
Well, I'm very upset because Jenny stole what I was going to say. I'm mad at you. Yeah. Actually, you're hired to speak at my funeral. Thank you. I could not possibly express better than what Jenny said as to all the reasons as to why we should be looking at his contract today as we have for the last month. And so thank you for putting that into words. I too struggled with the topic that Kritza brought up, and I appreciate you bringing that up as well on Monday. But 3 years ago, whenever we put together his contract, we didn't know what we didn't know. And we got very lucky that we had 5 votes to support the type of superintendent that we have today. And I'm proud that I was one of those 5 votes. I too am a woman of the public. I'm actually very active in the community, especially my own district and my own community. And I've been pleasantly surprised that I've only received 2 calls against the idea of renewing a contract right now. But I've received many, dozens, probably close to 50 calls and emails from constituents paying attention to what we're doing here on the board and saying, yes, this is the right time and this is the right move. And I appreciate them reaching out and sharing their feelings and their thoughts. But more importantly, I appreciate that they're paying attention and that they know our superintendent's name. Parents talk to me all the time about Dr. Johnson. I can't believe that they know his name because for so long, no one paid attention to education in Hamilton County. And that is how we know that the culture has shifted and that the work that we're doing is important. And the work that Dr. Johnson has been doing with his team and the teachers in our classrooms and the administrators is that important. A light bulb went off for me last week whenever I saw that high schoolers were trolling Dr. Johnson about school not being closed. And I know that sounds funny, but it's true. It's a shift in culture, and it's what we've needed. And so moving forward, could we do things differently in our contract like Kritza has brought up? I support that because I look at contracts for a living, and I think that's important. But more importantly, as Jenny's brought up, it's about securing our top talent. To be frank, this is not an issue that any private business would bring up. I'm not even sure that any other district in the state actually pays attention to when their superintendent's contract is renewed unless there's a performance issue. Sometimes we get into our own ways. Hamilton County, I've witnessed that now for almost 4 years, and I've been an advocate for pushing back on us getting in our own way. Jenny hit it on the head. Why are we getting in our own way whenever there's performance goals being met? And so tonight I will support this, and it's because I believe that in order to move forward, we must have Dr. Johnson on our team. And frankly, I don't want to be up here if we don't have him here. And if he were to say, I'm leaving, I'm not so sure that I'd stay on this board.
Mr. Smith.
I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman. Back last September, October, I think, when I asked my peers on the board for us to consider starting the conversation early, it never came into mind. In fact, I didn't even know that you even had a blackout period. So that had nothing to do with the reason I wanted to start the conversation. I've said it all along, and great things have been said, and I agree about everything that's been said, but I just want to say this. We've had four superintendents in 11 years. We need stability. And Dr. Johnson's done some great things, and I could go on and on and on, but I know you don't want to hear me do that. I could. But we need stability. And then when this meeting is over, and ever how this vote goes, we need to unify and continue on the same trajectory. And we've got a lot of work to do. We've had some things to celebrate, but we can't be comfortable with that. We got a lot of work to do. And I feel like we got the right person, who I didn't vote for, by the way. Originally, I didn't. And I've been proved wrong. We have the right man, and we need stability, and it's time to move forward. And I call for the question.
In just a moment. Jeremiah, you need to speak?
Yes, I just want to just echo what y'all have said. I mean, y'all said everything, but just from a student perspective, just how much change and how more confident we are as students, just the many programs he's implemented. I've never seen my peers and my classmates, I don't say be like excited. I mean, you know, it's school to school, but just the fact that even when we come to school, we're excited about the new, like the E-Labs. A lot of the students in my school, I know it's a couple other schools, they're so excited about how they're able to build and just create their own things, and even other programs that he's implemented. It's a long list of things of how even the Chromebooks, I know a lot of students, they are able to learn better with the Chromebooks. And even all my years being a part of HCDE/HCS, I've never seen, like, I didn't know any other superintendent but Dr. Johnson. And that was before I was able to be part of, thank you. And that was before I was able to be a part of SSAC. But just seeing how active he is in the community, I've never seen a superintendent like this in all my years. And so just to say, I know I can't vote, but for you all who are able to, I'm just saying, as students, we know him. I know students sometimes be like, who's superintendent? Like, who is he? We don't know who he is. But because of his activity in the community and how he's always been there for students, how he's always talking to students, how students are trolling him, like, it's just something that we need as students, that leadership, that integrity, that just role model to want to be better students. And so that's just from a student perspective, and hope y'all take something from that.
I just want to say one of the things I've noticed being involved in this role is how easily and how quickly folks tend to want to use sensationalized words to shape a narrative in a conversation. The first word that I'd like to address would be violation of a contract. There's no violation of a contract unless one party breaches or breaks the contract. There's no right or wrong in a contract if the two parties involved in the contract agree. If two parties revisit an agreement, there's no violation of the agreement. And it's really easy to sit up here and say that there's some violation of contracts going on. The contract is whatever the two parties agree to. And those two parties can revisit a contract anytime they choose. The other thing I would say is, I ran, and I've been really quiet for 3 years, and I wasn't quiet when I got on this board. I was very passionate about the state of our schools that my 3 children were beginning their journey in. And as a competitor, I will liken it to a street fight. And for the better part of a decade and a half, if this school system had been involved in a street fight with the other school systems in this state, we were on life support in a hospital room. Now, I'm sorry to use that analogy because I realize there are a ton of people in this room never been in a fight. But I got here to compete. I didn't get on this board to get reelected. I don't make decisions based on reelection. I make decisions based on my character and my integrity and the folks whose district I live in that I've lived in my entire life. And whether they agree with my decision or not, I know that they can lay their head down at night and know that I've put the time in to make the decision. And I can live with that. This isn't about an election year, skirting an election year, working around an election year. Matter of fact, from a political viewpoint, this is bad business. It's bad business. If you're concerned with those sort of things, which I'm not. And we've got a superintendent that I know knows how to compete. And my wife gets on me all the time, Joe, quit bringing that coach speak up. A lot of people don't care about athletics. Well, you know what? You just know what you know. It's the only reason you can explain a guy that's 5'7", 135 pounds, played college athletics. You either want to get after it or you don't. And we got a guy that wants to get after it. And it gets me pretty juiced up. Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander,
No.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon,
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
No.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. We'll now have our pledge and meditation by Ms. Carrie Wilmore, principal of Normal Park.
There's a lot to follow. Chairman Wingate, members of the board, Dr. Johnson, thank you for having us here today. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Being the month of February and in honor of Black History Month, some of our fifth grade students spent some extra time learning and celebrating African American culture in relation to their social studies work this quarter. Our teachers decided it would be a good opportunity for our students to participate in the EPB Black History Month Poetry Contest. Before writing, our students explored some of the different African American people and historical events which hold great importance in our society as a whole. Fifth grade student Addie Lucas chose to write about the Harlem Renaissance, and her poem has been chosen as a top 10 finalist in the EPB contest. She would like to share her poem with you at this time.
Harlem Renaissance. Harlem Renaissance. I am a flapper. The crowd watches me as I dance. Step up, tap, step back, tap. In a juke joint, nothing but dance. I am a flapper. I am a musician, playing music for the crowd, and the dancers. My trumpet, music, and me. In a juke joint, nothing but music. I am a musician. I am a blues singer in an office, thinking up new songs. But the troubles of my hour pass. The city passes me by, nothing but memory and thought. I am a blues singer. I am a local. I clean my house. I own my house. As music and laughter fill the air throughout the street, My history and culture surrounds me, nothing but what made me. I am a local. I am a visitor wandering the streets in utter amazement. The culture is a presence that anyone can feel. Nothing but amazement. I am a visitor. We are the Harlem Renaissance. The local, the blues singer, the musician, the flapper, the visitor. We are who we are. We are our culture and history. Nothing but utter truth. We are the Harlem Renaissance. I chose to write about the Harlem Renaissance in my poem because after reading a few books, I saw just how New York City was affected by the culture that soon flooded its gates. I learned about the happiness that surrounded it until the Great Depression settled in. Because of all the feeling and the freedom that African Americans that moved there finally experienced, it had so many detailed feelings to choose from for my poem.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. All right, next we'll recognize our exemplars of excellence. Dr. John Tharp.
Dr. Johnson, Chairman Wingate, and members of the board. The Ottawa High School Red Hots dance team won the TSSAA state championship at MTSU in December of this past year. This is the Red Hots' 7th state championship in the last 9 years. The Red Hots worked diligently for many months preparing for the competition. It's noted that they also participate in cheer at all football games and all basketball games, including the night at Soddy Daisy when we were there till 1 a.m. To secure that victory. They also donate their time to many organizations. Those organizations include Sleep in a Heavenly Peace and the Morning Point Assisted Living. These dancers are leaders in their school and leaders in the classroom. 3 of the team members are class officers. They're involved in student leadership organizations. Academics is a big priority for them. 7 of the 16 members received 4.0 GPAs this past semester. Members of the board, thank you for your time today. And one closing announcement from Tatiana.
We just want to say thank you so much for the 2-hour delay tomorrow. And go Owls!
And you got anything? Congratulations, ladies. I got it right here. All right, so next we'll get to our delegations. If you would please give your attention to Vice Chairman Joe Smith.
I know we have several, and I don't want to read this each time, so all of you that are going to address the board tonight, if you'd kind of pay attention here, so I won't have to read again. Thank you for your interest in addressing the Hamilton County Board of Education. During your presentation, please address the board as a whole, not individual board members or administrators. Also, do not present complaints or concerns you have about an individual employee of the school system. If you wish to voice those complaints and concerns, you should contact the central office and ask for a meeting with the superintendent. If you are criticizing an individual employee, I will interrupt you and ask you to refrain. If you continue to criticize employees, or if your remarks are in error or becoming repetitive, I may interrupt you and ask you to sit down. Please limit your remarks to 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. So, Ms. Jeanette, if you're ready, and let me, so we can just really keep things moving, Kendra and I believe John DeVore are going to come together, I understand. So you guys come, then Ms. Monroe, and then Mr. Hintz, and we'll try to really keep things moving here.
Good evening. As president of HCA, my priority and focus is on teachers receiving a fair compensation package, including adequate support in the classroom and at the building level. Having a strong leader is vital to that priority. Thank you for recognizing we need stability for this to remain consistent for us to continue our district's forward momentum. Creating a sustainable revenue stream to move teacher salaries to a competitive level that acknowledges and clearly underwrites the appreciation and value of the daily work and contributions to students into the effective operations of our schools is our priority. I have a few stories that I've collected to share from our teachers that are heartbreaking examples of the reason we need to improve. I'm a single mom, 2 kids at home, and this is my 26th year as a teacher. With my degree and experience, I should not be barely getting by. We deserve to have a pay raise every year, just like at most all companies. I live in a very modest house, drive a modest vehicle, and do not splurge on many luxuries out there, and yet I am living paycheck to paycheck. I am in the process of trying to find a second job just to make ends meet. In a different environment, workers with my degree and experience are making over 6 figures a year, yet I struggle to feed my kids. Yes, we have amazing benefits that do not need to be changed, but surviving life is important too. Teachers are not paid near enough for what they do. There is very little that is done for teachers in the course of the day. We take our own attendance, lunch count, plan instruction, teach lessons, meet for team meetings at least 3 days a week, take required online courses, answer emails, make copies, control behavior, deal with parents. Now regular teachers are special ed teachers, plan field trips, clean our rooms when they are not cleaned by cleaning service, stay after school for meetings, after school activities, and then take things home during the weekend and during the week. We deserve so much more for our stressful jobs. We all love children and love to teach and do all this for the students. We are always told how much we are appreciated, but when it comes to pay, it doesn't feel that way. It would be nice to be paid for all the actual time it takes to do this job. I spend an average of 3 to 4 hours Monday to Friday grading papers, entering grades, analyzing data, lesson planning. On the weekends, it's usually most of the day, either Saturday or Sunday, depending on which day I'm not working at my second job. I also work this second job 2 to 3 nights during the week after school from February to December, and I've had a second job the entire 22 years I've been teaching. I'm the primary breadwinner for my family. On a teacher's master's salary, I'm concerned I will not be able to provide for my family in the way a middle-class family should. Will my own children have access to experiences and opportunities that grow them as humans? I don't know. I wish that were a resounding yes. Everything from housing to childcare to college to healthy eating is a concern now. I have seen teachers here have to live together because they can't sustain a home by themselves with what they're being paid. And these are not new teachers. As a single person, I can pay my bills, but there is nothing left over to save. The salary does not fit the hours and the effort that we put in. I did the math once, and it was like I was being paid $13 an hour. While my salary is decent, it is not nearly enough to support myself or family. I have $27,000 in student loans and $2,000 in credit card debt and an 11-month-old child. It is very hard to stretch payments for them, and I haven't even moved out yet. It needs to be raised. I shouldn't come out of college straight into poverty. My husband and I plan on starting a family soon, and it terrifies me to think that we may not be able to afford a child with my pay and his pay. Most likely, after we have a child, one of us will have to find a second job in order for us to afford a child. HCEA remains committed to pursuing a sustainable 10% increase in teacher pay. It's time to lead by prioritizing funding for public education. Thank you.
Good evening. In general, I have no interest in addressing politicians. I'm largely only interested in your opinions should they match mine. I don't care how many millionaires you know, what your job title is, or where and how often you go to church. I am, however, interested in your votes in so much as they affect my life. Today, I would like to remind you that Hamilton County United was formed out of intense anger at a body not that different from yours. We formed because the County Commission failed in their moral duty to the children that live in their districts. I don't need to recount the details. We relived them often enough over the past 8 months. Hamilton County United formed to encourage teachers who have been told time and time again to wait, to stop, to sit down, that they have a voice, that they do have power. And slowly they've begun to realize it. We are voters, we are property owners, we are taxpayers. We love our jobs and we love our students, and we know what's best for them. We know this because we do the work. We know this because we have the experience. I wanted to remind you of who we are before you vote tonight. The County Commission started this fight. We're here to continue it. If you stand in our way, we'll fight you too. Thank you.
I just came to tell you a story. The story of a single Hamilton County student. Our student entered kindergarten at Big Ridge Elementary at the age of 4. Since she was already a confident reader and writer, she was welcomed with high hopes and open arms. Unfortunately, she would attend 4 different Hamilton County schools by 2nd grade. 5 if you count the fact that she would be back at Big Ridge a 5th time, enrolled back in Big Ridge again at the end of her 2nd grade year. But this time, her hair was tangled. Her clothes and her shoes didn't fit. She spent most of her time staring at her desk or out the window. None of her teachers had high hopes for her anymore, and only a few had open arms. The traumatic events that she experienced during those years included 2 instances of homelessness, so the move into government-subsidized housing in the middle of her 5th grade year would be the single greatest improvement of her life. By the time she was in middle school, you would have described her as unmotivated because she was staring out windows, still staring out windows. And when she wasn't, well, then you would have described her just as angry. But Maslow's theories wouldn't be included in the first educational psychology textbook for another 15 years. And trauma-informed instruction wouldn't hit mainstream classrooms for about another 30. So they did what they always did with inattentive, angry children back then. They put her in remedial classes. But as she moved from Hickson Junior High School to Hickson High School, something amazing was about to happen. A guidance counselor would look at her abysmal grades and her equally abysmal attitude and notice that all of her test scores were in the 99th percentile every year, every subject. They didn't know it, but those test scores were her silent cries for help. They were her only way of saying to the adults in her life, I am not stupid, and I really wish you would notice. So this angel of a guidance counselor placed her in what was known as the OTL program, the Opportunities to Learn at Hickson High School. Luckily, they had chosen exactly the right teachers for that program. And with the right professionals and the right supports, she soared. For the first time since her early days in kindergarten, school was a place of refuge and a place to grow. By now, you've probably figured out why I know so many details. Yes, sir. Thank you. By now, you've probably figured out why I know so many details about this girl. And I apologize for flipping into third person on you. But it was the only way I could get through that part of my story and have any hopes of maintaining my composure. I don't know if the OTL program was a pilot or if it just lost its funding, but it ended at the end of my sophomore year. The next year's teachers tried to keep it going, but without full implementation, it soon fell apart. And so did I. By February of my senior year in 1992, I would walk out of Hickson High School's doors, and I would never go back. The degreed professional educator standing in front of you, the published author, the community member who is working 24/7 to try to make a difference in her hometown, is nothing more than a high school dropout. This is very hard for me to talk about publicly, But I need you to know and understand why I'm about to make the request of you that I'm about to make. And I need you to know why I know it's the only way forward for our schools. I can see how easy it would be tempting to maybe hold back during this budget season, to not ask for the many, many supports and things that our students truly need. But I'm asking you, please, swing for the ever-loving fences. Not the bare minimum, not what we can just get by with, but put what is actually needed. Put the right professionals, put the right supports in every child's classroom.
Ma'am, your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
I volunteer my time for her.
Okay?
Thank you. I know I'm asking for a lot here. This is not easy. So I'm also going to make you a promise. You will not stand alone this time. I know what happened last time. You will not stand alone this time. I am going to stand with you, shoulder to shoulder, no gaps, no space in between us, for what our students need. But if you haven't noticed, I don't travel alone. I'm bringing a few hundred friends with me, and they will all be dressed in red, and we will stand with you for our students and our schools, because if not us, who? If not now, when? I still wonder what my life might have been like if that OTL program had not ended, because there were many more mistakes to be made after dropping out, trust me. I was worth the investment that was not made, and our students are worth it now. Thank you.
May I make a comment? Kendra, I just want to tell you, thank you for your vulnerability, for sharing your story. Of course, thank you to the other speakers and for sharing your feelings and your vulnerability, but we need more of that. We need to hear more about the stories like yours, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Mr. Hintz with kids. Okay. Mr. Hintz, are you here?
Hence. It's hence, you're right.
Mr. Hintz? No? Okay, we'll move on.
All right, that brings us to our presentations here. First up will be a school safety and security update from Dr. Robertson.
Chairman Wingate, Superintendent Johnson, members of the board, thanks for just a few minutes. Just want to give you a quick update, just a reminder. This time last month came with a request to hire up to 10 school security officers, and just want to give you an update on the progress we've made. Of course, just a reminder back to the Future Ready 2023, everything that we're doing in operations is driven by the district vision and the direction that you guys codified a few years ago. So some action steps to date. You saw this last month, but again, just a reminder of where we are. And one thing that has changed since, two things actually that have changed since last month, the hardening of some of our entrances. We've got about 32 schools that will be in phase one. There's a bid going out next week for that work, and that work looks to be done hopefully by the start of next school year. So just about 40% of our schools will have the entrances reworked so that we're putting visitors into holding areas, and then from there they'll be allowed access into our offices instead of directly into hallways or school buildings. Also, we've had a lot of conversation about Stop the Bleed. All of our school nurses will be trained on March 16th from a generous donation from Erlanger Hospital. We're going to have at least one kit, hopefully 2 kits available in all schools. And we've talked to schools about kind of treating those similar to how we treat AEDs, where they'll be posted in secure locations throughout the building, but where everybody will know those. Our school nurses are going to be trainers, and we'll look to train all of our teachers sometime to start of next school year, so that we'll continue that work. Now to student security officers. We came to you last month asking to hire up to 10. Be quite honest, not knowing what we would get and what that would look like. We've been just kind of blown away by the community's response and where we are right now. We've offered positions to 7 people, which is pretty amazing. I think I had a conversation with a few of you thinking if we could get 3 or 4, we'd be thrilled. And really what stands out is not the number, but the experience. And I put up there the experience that is included in these 7 people, and we're going to put out a press release once we kind of get this for sure going. They do have a number of steps to go through, our normal process with background checks, also drug screenings, but we're doing a psychological evaluation, kind of going a step above what we typically do. But experience, we have current police officers from some of our municipalities, former drug enforcement agent with 30 years experience there, a couple of park rangers, several people with military experience, and at least one with military police experience. So we're getting individuals that are not just coming in thinking this is a good idea, but people that are trained. 6 of them are already post-certified and in positions where they're doing this kind of work already. So very excited about that. We're aiming for the 2nd week of March to have them in our schools, fully trained, ready to go in Hamilton County Schools uniforms. Take any questions at this time if you have them.
Dr. Johnson.
Go ahead, Dr. Highlander.
I just want to mention one thing. Erlanger was the key conduit, Southeast Region Healthcare Coalition, but Don Mueller at Erlanger helped make the connection to get all the Stop the Bleed kits available. And Dr. Corbin didn't have to answer any questions tonight because he said the first time he came and answered questions, y'all welcomed him real well. So, so that's it.
Dr. Highlander.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Robertson. We appreciate your diligence in this and yours too, sir. And we'll give you a kind word tonight, but I tried to last time. Pardon me? And for you as well. For you as well, sir. I will say, I'm not sure of this. I know the National Transportation Board suggests that all school buses have the Stop the Bleed kits, and I know in North Georgia most of the counties do. I think across the state they do. I know the ones I'm familiar with, North Georgia do, and the school bus drivers are required to go through the training. And I would suggest that both school bus drivers go through the training, have the kits on every single school bus, short bus, long bus, doesn't matter. And I think also all our coaches need to go through that. And
coaches will be, school bus is a great point. We'll get on that.
Okay. But I would strongly suggest that. Do whatever I can to support it. Thank you.
Mrs. Robinson.
Sure. Dr. Corbin, we're always like mean the first go around. After that, it's like cakewalk. So I have 2 questions. With the Stop the Bleed training, I think that makes a lot of sense to have the nurses train. I've been given feedback from some of the school nurses in my district that they are like stretched in that capacity. So do you feel like putting this on nurses that they have the capacity to do this, or do you see a resource problem there?
We can work with Cheryl Fletcher. I've been working side by side with her on this, and she hasn't mentioned that. They're not the only ones. All of our SROs, except for I think 4 of them, have been through the training as well and would be able to help in that capacity. Of course, we'll get these student security officers. We want to hit coaches pretty quick too, and so I think there'll be multiple people that could do it. And if there is a capacity issue, we would
just shift around.
Yeah, definitely shift.
Okay. My other question is, I think it's awesome that we have filled these SSO positions and had, a number of applicants. I am just curious, what do you think the difference, why did we have such a hard time filling SROs, but yet clearly a, pretty easy time filling the SSO position?
There are some differences in what their qualifications are. And SRO, one of them, they've got to go through a physical agility test early on, and they also have to have 2 years experience. So a park ranger necessarily wouldn't have that experience to go right into an SRO, but I think certainly what a park ranger is doing is exactly what we want them doing in our schools. I will say I was in a meeting earlier today with Captain Shepard, and they're making some progress on identifying and interviewing candidates, so pretty excited to hear about that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. McClendon.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo that. Thank you. Thank you to Dr. Corbin. Wasn't the nicest the first time you got up there, but you got you working overtime now, so I don't know how nice that is. But just the outpouring, the number of applicants, the quality of them. I think it's a testament to how much this community values school security, and this shows that. But thank you for just getting this. And I remember us
Appreciate
saying,
your
if we can get
leadership,
3, we'll be good. But I'm glad that we're getting 7 and getting them into schools.
Mr. Smith.
I want to make sure that we continue to work with the sheriff and continue to, I mean, we've all said the Cadillacs, the SROs. And so I hope that he's continuing to look for SROs and that we don't just be satisfied with security officers in the long run. You know, this was all designed to be short term, as I understood. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, right now it's approved through the end of the year, yes.
Yeah. So, but SROs is where we need to be. But I think this helps, feels better.
Mr. McClendon.
One more thing that got me, made me remember my question. I know we had a large number of applicants. If that applicant comes through and they're qualified to be an SRO, are we making sure that we're getting that to the sheriff's office to, help them out too?
We were working very closely with Captain Shepard. Like I said, we were in a meeting with him this morning. We have several other meetings coming up, either with the sheriff or with Captain Shepard. So I don't see, again, we need to look at student security and school security as a wall, and this is one piece of that wall. SROs are a big piece of it. Controlled access doors, another big piece of it. Visitor management systems. I mean, this is a wall, and so this is a piece of it. I do think that, again, when you look at SROs, even if they fill the positions that we put in the budget, the 500,000, the additional 7 positions, we still have elementary schools that aren't going to have SROs, and I think until we can fill every school with an SRO, I would challenge you as a board to continue to consider SSOs and what their role is in that wall.
Okay, any other comments, questions for Dr. Robertson? Okay, before we move on here, I want to thank Commissioner Jeter for being here. Thank you, and I apologize. I've been intending to recognize you for the last hour and 10 minutes, and all right, so that brings us to our next presentation. Mr. Fogelman.
Chairman Wingate, Dr. Johnson, members of the board. Tonight I'd like to give you an update or really kind of lay the groundwork for some things that we're doing under the Great Teachers, Great Leaders strategic plan under Future Ready 2023. As you know, in the governor's State of the State address, there was a significant discussion or mentioning of the Grow Your Own initiative, some things from a funding aspect as well as support. So I want to talk just a little bit about that tonight. Of course, we want to be the best school district. We think this is one of the ways to do it. And as I mentioned, this falls under Great Teachers and Great Leaders. Just take a minute to remind you of just some of the key strategies in our Great Teachers, Great Leaders: recruit, select, retain, develop. And importantly tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about classified employee talent development. Also, just to, I think we talked about this in one of my previous presentations, but last year, myself, Dr. Highlander, Penny, you saw Angie Cass here, and Jill Lantroop. We formed a Hamilton County team, and we participated in the Tennessee Human Capital Network. And these are just some of the strategies that we came up with as a team to really kind of think about human capital management going forward for Hamilton County. We had an opportunity to interact with several districts around the state leadership, And you can see, some of the things, it lines up very closely with our strategic plan, but looking at multiple options for teacher pipelines, a licensure pathway for job embedded, opportunities for classified employees to a certification route for them. So it was things that we felt like could really, and actually kind of set the tone for some of the actions that we've been taking over the last few months. So Dr. Highlander, thank you a lot for being a member of that team. Grow Your Own. So what is it? It's a state-sponsored initiative. It really focuses on three things. We're going to pay, the concept is to pay a classified employee to become a teacher. They would have an opportunity to graduate debt-free and be prepared for the classroom, because one of the concepts is that they're exposed and working, mentored with a great leader. They also, gives us opportunities to develop our pipelines, address some of our talent pool challenges, and really start to refocus our recruitment in the way we think about recruiting classified employees. So why would we think about Grow Your Own? So again, let me just take us back to Future Ready 2023 for a moment. It's about recruiting and selecting, developing a strategy for our classified employees, expanding our internal recruiting capacity, robust teacher pipelines, and really an aggressive talent acquisition approach. If you kind of look at, here's what's happened year to date for us. We've hired 375 external teachers to Hamilton County. Almost 200 of those have been first-year teachers. We've hired almost 300 classified employees. And I'll step back and just talk, just one point as I make that. We feel like we've worked really hard, done a good job in this area, but we're still not only 98% staff. We're going to carry about 11 positions in the next school year out of the Opportunity Zone, and about another 4 positions in some of our learning communities, positions that we're having trouble filling. The majority, 5 of those are exceptional ed positions, and you'll see the point why exceptional ed is important to us as we move forward. But also when we think about the pipeline, about the talent pool, it's starting. You've seen this slide in one of my previous presentations. Our talent pool is dwindling. You can see both on a national level as well as a local level. UTC, a 44% decrease in graduates from the College of Ed over the last 4 years. And if you think about it from a standpoint of attrition trends, if you look at our resignations, retirements over the course of the last 4 years, we're going to be about 350 people that we're going to be replacing on a yearly basis. And then if you look out what could potentially happen about retirement trends, we've got about 175 employees today that could retire with full employment, full retirement. And we also have another 400 that could take early retirement. You've seen this slide. Another reason for Grow Your Own, we're really making a dent in the diversity of our workforce. If you take just a minute and look at our pipeline, we fill positions from experienced teachers. We've got university graduates, about 30%, that's 50 universities. We have 12% from job embedded candidates. Job embedded, that may be the old transitional license. Some of you might be familiar with that. A lot of those are CTE teachers, but they're also science, math, some of the arts positions that we have job embedded teachers, and of course Project Inspire and TFA also make up a part of our workforce or our talent pipeline. We also, some things that are on the horizon that are not up there, of course we have our teaching academy at Tyner. We are also planning to working closely with a lot of the colleges that we recruit from, really having a recruitment fair for them to come into our schools next fall and really make a pitch for people entering the teaching profession. And this year is when we do our honors banquet. You know, we typically provide a certificate to our top 10% that tell them they can have a job in Hamilton County if you know, after they finish college and come back. We're going to put a little more, I guess, recruiting emphasis in that certificate this year. So again, why would we think about Grow Your Own? We think that, first of all, retention could be better. Studies show, research shows that retention, it would be improved. Research tells us that they typically outperform novice teachers, especially when you talk about classroom management and building relationships with students, because most of these folks are already in the classroom. And the concept is really about having more adults in the classroom. And again, from our perspective, it's about improving our pipeline and really making a change. At some point, some of our newest and most inexperienced teachers are in some of our hard-to-fill schools. And that's really probably not the right thing to be doing. So as we think about what does Grow Your Own, I'm sorry, let me step back just a minute and discuss alternative licensure. We've got a couple of pilots going right now. We have some, last year we could not fill our some of our ex-ed positions. So we surveyed our ex-ed assistants, and we found that we had 6 to 8 that had bachelor's and master's degree. We went through a process of them taking a praxis. We've worked with Tennessee Tech, and now we have 3 of those ex-ed assistants in the classrooms as job-embedded teachers. They're working with Tennessee Tech to complete their degree, and then we'll have another entering this fall. We did another information session last week. We've identified 21 other assistants that have a potential to step into that role as an ex-ed, as a job-embedded ex-ed teacher. We also are working with Project Inspire. We have a pilot going on there with multi-classroom leaders. And actually, I'm going to ask Juan Moreno to step up in just a moment and tell you a little bit about that, because that's a key concept as we move forward with the Grow Your Own concept. So when we think about Grow Your Own, there's really 4 specific pipelines. Job embedded, and that's something that we're currently doing. But as we think about it going forward, we know that we need to make some changes in the way that we do that. We need a tighter partnership with our universities. We need some additional front-end induction. They're part of our new teacher induction, but many of these job-embedded teachers do not have the advantage of some of the educational background. So we recognize that we've got to provide some additional induction on the front end, and then the supports that we provide them. And this is just not, this is something that we'll need to be doing for our CTE teachers as well as other certifications. Part of what they do is pass a praxis, and that really starts us down a 3-year path with them to attain their degree. Teacher residency, we already do that with Project Inspire, but there's some opportunities there with Project Inspire that we've talked with them about. We're in brainstorming sessions to really kind of rethink some of that. Also, then let me get to both elementary and middle school residency. The way we see that, that's probably the true Grow Your Own, both of those residencies. It's essentially we'd have a full-time Hamilton County employee, ed assistant, working in the classroom with one of our multi-classroom leaders. They would have an opportunity to, our first opportunity would be looking at our own employees, but we see that in the future we could expand that to actually become recruiting some of our own high school seniors for these roles. Essentially what would happen, they'll get a dual certification, elementary K-5 through with a SPED or an ELL, and then with the middle school it would be a math, science, and a SPED ELL certification. So what does that look like? They're essentially going to work in the day, during the day with Hamilton County, and at night they're going to school. They're also would be involved in any tutoring, study groups, other joint activities along with Hamilton County and the university to be able to support them through the process. It's a 3-year program instead of a typical 4-year. And what this does, the residency takes the place of the requirement for student teaching. The idea, no cost to the resident, that they actually are able to graduate and come to work for us. We see that as a 3-year agreement that they would come to work for us. And our plan would be that we'd be focused on our hard staff schools. So I'll ask Juan to step up and just really give you his experience working with multi-classroom leaders as part of the Project Inspire pilot.
Hello there, good evening. My name is Juan Moreno. I am the proud principal of East Ridge Elementary. On a daily basis, we make a difference and try to teach our little under 1,100 kids every day and give them a bright future. One of the reasons I'm up here talking is we were empowered as the leader of East Ridge Elementary to kind of rethink the way that we add those supports to our teachers. And so we were approached last year to pilot a Project Inspire Opportunity Culture Partnership where we took a role, a position that you would normally see a classroom aide, and we pretty much took that funding and broke it down to build capacity to try to kind of spread the wealth and add a couple more safety nets for our students and leaders on an everyday basis. So with that kind of broken down position, as you see up there on that diagram, I was able to hire 2 Project Inspire residents with the partnership of the Public Ed Foundation. These 2 awesome bright ladies are in our schools. The one was placed in 4th grade, one was placed in 2nd grade. They are in there with a multi-classroom leader. These teachers are teachers that have already proven themselves. Surprisingly, I was playing on their strength that both of them had previously been math coaches before. So they had the foundation of knowing good math skills, how to push teachers to kind of push the thinking of the students themselves. And so they got a little bit of a side compensation to work with these pretty much residents twofold. One, to empower them. So the first quarter of the fall semester, they were there teaching side by side with these residents. They were teaching them classroom management. They were kind of walking, planning, doing everything that as a brand new teacher, you're like, good grief, I wish I had that. I would be so much more amazing if I had that one-on-one support, someone that was building that relationship with me and empowering me to make those decisions. And then after that quarter of that kind of one-on-one time with those 2 residents in those 2nd and 4th grade classrooms, that freed up those 2 multi-classroom leaders to then still kind of work with them half of the day. The second half of the day, they're earning their money because they are coaching, they're running data meetings, they are going into other classrooms in 3rd, 4th, 5th, looking at data, kind of looking at best practices, working with brand new teachers that kind of went through other residents and other programs. And at the same time, the other multi-classroom leader that's paired up in 2nd grade at the same time, they're building capacity with my other teachers, doing residents, working side by side, making a difference on the daily operations that we have. So with this opportunity, we were able to take that one position and kind of spread the wealth. At the end of this year, not only do I have those 2 multi-classroom leaders that have something else on top. When you have a good teacher, you want to give them something that kind of keeps them going. And as most kind of great, amazing teachers, they need something else to kind of keep themselves busy to kind of push them to continue to teach at the amazing level that they do. So these 2 multi-classroom leaders now, not only are they thriving and kind of building other teachers that are future teachers, but at the same time, they're helping their colleagues get better and pushing them to do greater things. And then at the end of the year, I have 2 residents that are fully implemented in what we've been doing. They build relationships with our school. They know how our routines work. They build community with relationships with our community, with their students. So if I have 2 open positions, I can easily plop them in those, and I don't have to start from scratch. And so to me, it's a win-win, as we would call in the leader in me lingo we use. So to me, it's a no-brainer to repurpose that one position to build capacity. And we got that opportunity to try it. And so far, we've seen some great things out of it. And we hope to continue to support the work that we're doing and then kind of embed it with the Grow Your Own.
Thank you, Juan. So really, Juan hit this. It's just a great opportunity for our teachers and our students. And the other thing that research tells us that these multi-classroom leader teams really improve performance, make gains both in math and reading. So how are we going to do this? We looked. First of all, we've checked with, surveyed our classified staff, and we've identified 185 classified staff that are interested in this program. But what's really amazing about it is 96% of them have some college all the way up to a bachelor's or a master's. 52% of them have a bachelor's or a master's degree. So we're going to be able to really almost immediately start to make some impact in this area. So as we think about what our priorities are, we don't believe that we can accomplish both of these, all four of these actions in 1 year. We're going to focus on job embedded, and we're going to do that just because of the amount of our classified staff that have bachelor and master's degrees. We think that we can start to, plus what we're already doing in the ex-ed area. We also, our second area we'd be looking at is elementary residency. And we'd be working with UTC to try to get that accomplished. We'd like to be able to do that in the first, by next school year. That's an aggressive plan to be able to pull that off. But we do have an opportunity because this ground has been plowed before us at the state level. So we'll be able to take advantage of some of that work as we go forward. So as we think about what that capacity might look like going forward, I showed you a little earlier what some of our pipelines are. We think Grow Your Own could potentially be about 20% of the number of people that we hire on an annual basis. So one of the things that's kind of critical in working with the state, I'll just mention that in the morning I have a phone call with David Donaldson. He's their chief of human capital and really kind of the architect with this, because what I want to do is start talking to him about what type of funding would be available from the state for us to be able to do this. But really what we're talking about is a class size waiver to really actually fund. So you take a vacancy, let's use this example, first and second grade. We'd have a vacancy in both of those grades, and really kind of looking at our student population, what we're able to do would be hold that vacancy, hire a couple of residents, and assign them to that grade band. What we would see, this is an actual example from another school district, and as you can see, their student teacher ratio went up from 19.6 to 21.1. But what really happened in this, that first of all, they're starting to develop a classified staff, and secondly, they also have more adults in the classrooms. In a similar type scenario would be for our 4th and 5th grade. Now, I've looked at our elementary average student-teacher ratio. We average across the entire district right at 17. So this is probably going to be really easily doable for us and really not ever hit the state averages. So I'm going to transition just a minute from Grow Your Own because I really want to talk about Grow Your Own leadership development. It's another activity in our Future Ready 2023, and it's really about building capacity with leaders, succession planning, and developing a leadership pipeline. We've been very fortunate over the last 10 years to have a relationship with PEF and the work that they've done with our PLA. It really has been valuable work, and we appreciate it. We want to, as we move forward, we see that their partnership is very important to us, and we'll continue to work with them as we start to look at what we can be doing to really improve and expand our leadership pipeline. Really, what we're seeing is that we would have pipelines in these areas: aspiring teacher leader, an aspiring principal, aspiring AP rather, aspiring principal, aspiring senior leader, and then a department manager lead. And we kind of, our acronym is LEAD: Leadership, Explore, and Develop. And we are working right now to really kind of lay out what this cohort structure would look like, and planning to start this in preparation for the next school year. So what's the next step? First of all, there's a lot of work to do with formalizing both on job embedded and the elementary residency, working with our universities. We also need to think about our funding. As I mentioned, I'll be talking to the state in the morning. We have the class size waiver will be one of the ways that we will fund this. But we'll also need to start working on what the coursework looks like, how we determine our adjunct faculty, finalizing a list of schools that can host residents, and really start that selection process, not just for residents, but really for MCLs. And then we'll be launching the application for our leadership pipeline. So business is brisk in the area of human resources. And is there any questions?
Dr. Highlander.
I'd like to say, Mr. Fogelman, I have told Dr. Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, that he made a very good hire with you.
I want you to get one.
No, not the only one. I said one of many, but very good hire. And you brought a lot of professionalism to this staff from industry, and you've done a good job. And Penny and Ms. Cass and the whole group, Ms. Landtroop. It was a wonderful experience, a learning experience for me, and I've been in education a long time. But I will say I am an avid reader and researcher, and I will say that we are, some of you smile, I send you things, forward things to you quite often, so some Dr. Johnson and his staff. But I will say we are at a period of hiring of teachers where a lot of young people are not going into education. It takes a dedication. It's almost like going into a priesthood or a ministerial or a rabbi position. I mean, it's a lifetime of service. And I think you've hit on some good ideas of people that are here, and I applaud you. But I will say this. One, sir, LeBron Sturkey and Ms. Ford and David Carroll and I were with you at your elementary school to kick off the coupon book sales. I'm going to tell you, Tucker, I've got some great principals in my district. I'm not demeaning any of them. They're wonderful. This guy is stupendous. I mean, he got with those kids, and I mean, my goodness, I don't know how much money you raised for your school through those coupon book sales, but you did an awesome job. I cannot tell you all the things that he did of those kids, but he is a fine example of a leader, and thank you, Juan, for what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Fogelman.
Mrs. Jones.
I just have one quick question. With the positions like the job embedded, the non-traditional paths, will we be providing any support for them, like for the praxis test? I know that I know one young lady that's in the school that I represent. She's an amazing teacher. I was just telling Tucker, she's got the News Channel 12 award. I mean, she's an amazing teacher, but she is a point or two off every time she takes the praxis, and she has a bachelor's degree. And so now she can no longer, of course, operate in that role. And I really worry about my kids in the school where she was, because she's a great asset to that building and that class and the classroom that she was in. And so I just wonder what supports do we have in place in that area, because I know that praxis can be a very hard exam.
So I would say right now our supports are limited, but what we've done is we spent some time at Nashville Teacher Residency, and they really got a success story about their residency program as well as people being able to pass praxis. So we picked up some ideas, and we've got those ideas built into our action plan, and we'll be implementing them as we go forward with this. But there's ways to help people pass that praxis. And in this situation, we're going to have to provide some additional supports because we're going to have people who have maybe not been in college for several years that are going to make great teachers, but we've got to help them take those first steps to be able to get there.
Mrs. Hill.
Two different things. First, along the lines of where Caritza was going, but with regard to folks who are currently classified staff, our classified staff have very small salaries, and the reality of many of them do. The reality of working during the day and going to school during the night, while a tremendous opportunity in order to graduate with a higher certification debt-free, I do think realistically, for us to be successful with this investment of our money and their time and our time, it would be wise to be thinking about other wraparound services that would help alleviate barriers to participation, because things like childcare and taking care of parents and things like that, when you don't have a very large salary, that makes purchasing those kind of supports on your own difficult. So just something to think about.
Yeah, we spent a half a day with another district that's actually in the early stages of this.
Great.
They've implemented, and that was one of the learnings for us, is the wraparound services that we've got to figure out how to provide. And there's a lot of different options for ways to do that. So we've learned some lessons as a result of those visits, and we recognize that that's going to be a challenge for us.
Okay. To quote Juan, that would add to the win-win there.
Exactly right.
The other thing that I would just like to add is not so much to address you, but to just talk to our teachers for a minute, that education is being disrupted. All kinds of industries are being disrupted. I mean, we are living through a time where data is tremendously important. We've had to change the way that we build our assessments, the way that we build our lessons, and talking about changing our student-teacher ratios, changing the way that we structure our classrooms, the way that we offer teachers opportunities to grow their careers. This is a disruption, potentially. And I hearken back to what I said earlier, that what our teachers are saying is that Dr. Johnson, and through his team, has strategically built capacity by equipping and empowering educators. And that Dr. Johnson knows which levers will improve outcomes for all students. So things like this, I feel like, could be met with skepticism, concern, but I would encourage our teachers to instead approach this with a spirit of collaboration and trust, recognizing that over the course of his tenure, Dr. Johnson has proven to be a leader that listens. And that is what I have seen from the leadership at each tier, so to speak, in the organization. So this makes a heck of a lot of sense to me. I see this and I think this is the smartest thing coming down the pipe. It's going to have bumps, but I think if we can hold on tight and feel it through, it's going to benefit our students and our teachers in the long run. So thanks.
Just a couple of quick things. Thank you, Keith. This is an investment, and so I want to preempt that as we go into budget season. And he's got to figure out, his team. I know Angela and Penny, we're working on trying to figure out, and he's talking to the state how to pull that off. And so it's absolutely an investment, and so it's something we've got to continue to consider, in particular as you see what's happening with traditional universities and programs. And I think our educator prep programs are being forced to partner in this way because people aren't coming through the traditional ranks. The other thing I would mention is, we start with educational assistants and the classified staff that we have in our schools, in our school system. But the reality is there are a lot of people with bachelor's degrees and even master's degrees that are in our community that are interested in the field of education, but they're so, I hate to use the word intimidated, but I don't know how to access it. And, overwhelmed is probably a good word. They just don't know how to access it. And I can tell you the amount of people I bumped into that say, how can I be a teacher? And then I might point them to HR, and then HR points them somewhere else. And before they know it, sometimes they throw their hands up. And so this may be a phenomenal entry point for many people in our community that have degrees that want to teach, are looking for a career path. And so excited about obviously starting it, but what it could be in the days and years ahead. So thank you.
All right. That brings us to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Do we have any items we'd like to take a look at? Dr. Highlander.
I think it's 9.3B. Can you check, Mrs. Ford? Is that on teacher raises?
What is it that you're wanting?
Roman numeral 9.3B, is that correct?
9D.
Yeah, right. 9D, 3B.
Budget amendments, and which one? The federal or the general?
General, about the teacher raises.
Okay, so it's 9D3B.
Yeah, I left out the D, sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, any other items? All right, I think we're ready, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Highlander?
Yes.
Mrs. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Lennon?
Yes.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Servant?
Yes.
Chairman Wingate?
Yes. Dr. Highlander.
Thank you, Chairman Wingate. I have been on record as saying, and I will say, and I will continue to say, that the classroom teacher is the basis for the education in this county and every other county. And we all, every one of us, appreciate classroom teachers. And it hurts me to see that our classroom teachers are paid less than almost all of the surrounding organizations pay their teachers, North Georgia, the surrounding counties of Tennessee. And while I am very careful with the taxpayer dollar, I really want to be. I want to thank Dr. Johnson, who had Brent Goldberg assure us that this raise that we're asking for is sustainable. Isn't that right, Mr. Goldberg?
Yes, sir.
Correct. And I appreciate that from Monday night. I want our people throughout the county to understand that he has researched this, and we have confidence that it's sustainable. And I will tell you, we all appreciate our teachers. And I am supporting this. Wish it was more, but I'm thankful for what we're getting.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I got your, Keith, I guess this was from you, yeah, about the raise that going forward to look it up. I guess maybe we're just not getting on the same page about exactly what this would look like. But I've talked about the highest paid teacher, finding out what, say, if we were going to give a 2% raise or 3%, whatever, figure out what the highest paid teacher would get, and then give that across the board. And that even includes administrators to keep from continuing to widen the gap between this classroom teachers and the administration, because that's all across the board raises do. So I got I didn't really have that much time to look at it because I just printed it off right before I left work, and just been trying to kind of glance over it since I've been here. But you say this would not, I don't understand. You say some teachers may not like this idea. If the highest paid teacher is getting the raise and then other people, are you saying that why would they care if they were getting their raise to kind of bring everybody else up, I guess? And I'm even talking about giving it to everyone across. I guess I'm just not understanding what the.
So I think that, the point I'm making with the email I sent earlier today, and that's my point of view. And it's my point of view based on having, managed a lot of different compensation systems over the course of numerous years, let me say. And you got to really stop and think about our pay structure. Our pay structure is based on a experience and educate, as people gain more experience, as they gain education, they have an opportunity to progress through that range. And so as I sit and think about that structure, is that I feel like it would say to employees that if we were giving a percent increase at 2.5 for our most seasoned teachers,
And then not giving a 2.5% to everybody, but say what that amount, say that amount's at $2,000, we'll just say, give everybody $2,000 and everybody moves up at the same level. And I guess I'm just trying to understand, you're saying the higher paid teachers don't want the lower paid teachers to move up like that? I'm just not understanding the situation.
What I'm saying is that ultimately that's going to lead us to compression. So it's going to, so that scale was set up for a purpose. And if we want to change the scale, we can always do that. But what I'm saying from just a sound compensation practice, we want our, I guess our teachers, people in the same job category, want to have some level of comfort that there's a differential between an entry-level person and an experienced seasoned
But
person.
if they're all getting 2.5% now, what's the difference with them getting the same amount? I guess you're saying that, I don't know, I mean, I don't understand why the higher paid teacher would have a problem with the lower paid teachers getting more, because we've done that in the past with the entry-level teachers. We've given them more money as an entry-level.
We've made it, well, I can only speak to one. Last year we did make an adjustment to try to get our entry-level positions up above 40,000.
Right.
So that we could be, but as I saw that, again, as a kind of a one-time deal to get us in a position to be more competitive. I'm just telling you.
I'm just thinking that would help the new teachers, the new hires, as much, would get their salary up to where we say we want it to be, and while everybody else is getting the same amount as well, kill two birds with one stone, in other words, that's what I'm looking at, because, I'm just seeing the gap continue to widen between the administration and the teachers, and I don't like that. Instead of everybody going up, it's just kind of doing this.
Well, so I'll address it. So that gap, so we actually, as we move people at a 2.5% at the entry rate to the most seasoned rate, that gap really doesn't change. That gap stays the same. So if I'm given 2.5% and there's a $15,000 difference between step 0 and step 25, I'm going to maintain that difference as I move the whole scale 2.5%.
But 2.5% of 170,000 is a whole lot more than 2.5% of 40,000.
I agree with you. They're going to get more money.
Well, it's a good. I mean, it's just a fact. I'm just saying
that everybody is moving 2.5%, and then the next year, I'm an entry-level teacher. I'm going to move to step 1 of that rate as also part of my increase. So we're moving them through the scale, and we're also moving the range 2.5%.
Well, I get all that, but I still.
Mrs. Lennon.
And again, I apologize for bringing this up because I wasn't here Monday night. I know you've had the discussion. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you to all these teachers that are here tonight. It's great to see all of the red. I'm very happy to see the teacher support. So thank you for being here. It's great. I hope you'll continue to show up when we get to budget season and come to county commission meetings. It's great. Great having you here. And for the 2.5% raise, I think this is a great idea. And I know that there's been a lot of discussion about it, and I've been trying to wrap my head around it, and I've asked questions, and I think that we have done a great job. I want to say thank you to Brent, because I think, when change happens, it's hard, and you have to kind of wrap your head around what we're doing as a system. And we have a new chief financial officer. And not saying that we did things bad in the past, because we didn't. It's just now we're doing things differently. And just in doing that, we're saving. We're saving. We're managing the budget differently. We're being proactive. And I think that it's helping us. And by being proactive, we're being able to utilize the budget the best way possible. So there is actually, we have a surplus. So what are we going to do with that? Are we going to stick it away and not do anything with it? And at the end of the year, people are going to kind of question us about why didn't we invest that money? So what do you want to invest it in? You want to invest it in the people that are doing the work. And what better people who's out there working the hardest? Our teachers. So we have to invest it in our people. And I think that's what, we've been called out for not running this like a business. So we have to, if we're running it like a business, then we have to run it like a business would and invest it back in our people. And I think that, thank you for doing that. And I'm proud to invest it in our teachers. So I want to vote yes on this 2.5% raise and invest it in all of our teachers in Hamilton County. So thank you for being able to do this for us.
Just a couple things contextualize. There are members of senior leadership, and I'll leave them my name that will get less than a 2.5% pay increase just because of the way the scale works out. And so because of that, you end up getting compression from the top, kind of down to where teachers are. So just a point of clarification. The other thing I'd share, just again, just to contextualize, so in 2017, Mayor Coppinger had a budget working group, and one of their key tenets was we need to run more like a business operation. That was the key tenet, efficient and effective operations. Brent's come in and done phenomenal work, and we've got talented people all around the table that have been working with and through our budget. Make no mistake, obviously, we had a budget request last year. We could not fund all the things that we wanted within our budget. In fact, there was some $32 million in cuts we end up having to make from desired proposed items. That $32 million still exists in unfunded proposals, things such as supports for literacy, things such as increased counselor access, things such as more post-secondary and vocational opportunities. Those things remain unfunded. And so I want to be abundantly clear about that. What Brent's been able to do and we've been able to do is to really track revenue. And so as a part of running like a business, you're always looking at your revenue and your expenditures, revenue and expenditures throughout the course of the year. Traditionally speaking, what the district has done is with revenue, you set your budget beginning of the year based on projections. And Brent, you've taught me enough to be dangerous. Just messing. I got a business degree, so I'm not too terrible. And so you set your budget based on the projections. The reality is we are over a $400 million budget. So, $3 million is less than a percentage of the actual number. And we've budgeted more aggressively. And so we budgeted 99% plus of our budget. Traditionally speaking, what the district has done is we've taken that, if you want to call it surplus, we've taken that additional revenue based on projecting, because you're getting your best number. We've had a good economy. Everybody knows that. You take that best number that you can get, and we've put it into roofs, HVAC, different areas of our operation, which is absolutely important. But everybody knows we proposed a 5% employee increase last year. For teachers, leaders, support staff, we proposed a 5% increase, and we were not able to do that. We were able to do a few things that were aligned to the areas that we desired. So what we're able to do is to restore that 2.5% based on being more efficient and effective and running like a business. And, it's like revenue sharing, profit sharing that happens in the business, in businesses. When your revenue is up, you have no better place to share that than the employee. So here's the reality. 81+% of our budget is people, and so we need to be investing in our people. And so that's how we got here. I just want to be really, really clear that it's not money that's fallen from anywhere. This is really a matter of operating more like a business. We are a $500 million organization with 6,000 employees, And we have talented people on our team that are working extremely hard and have found ways to make us more efficient and effective as an organization as we pursue the goals. So that's how we got here.
Mrs. Robinson.
No, I turned my light off.
Okay. Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Thurman.
Yes. I want us to remember at budget time next year, we should have funded this when we did our budget. We should fund the teachers first, and then with whatever we have left over, then that's what we should base the rest of our budget on. Instead of always, teachers are the first ones that take the hit when we get ready to cut something. So remember this conversation about how important teachers are that we're all having, and we all know this. So they should be the first thing that is, they should be the first people who are budgeted in the budget. And we should go to anything else that's left over, then we'll do what we can with that money. And also, Scott, Monday night, I'm not getting into this because we went around in circle and never got anywhere the other day. I felt like a hamster on a wheel the other night having this discussion about who are teachers. We need to clarify that. Some counties do it. We need to figure out what we need to do. Just that when we say that we want the teachers to get a raise, we want it to be the classroom teachers, and it doesn't necessarily have to involve the administrators. So we have to figure out a way to get around that when it comes budget time. We need to figure out what that's going to look like. If other counties do it, we can do it as well. And I know other counties do it. Because we took $7 million out of our fund balance that we could have done a lot of things in some of our schools to give bonuses when these teachers should have gotten a raise, and they could be getting a raise on top of a raise this time. And we shot that out of the saddle. But anyway, because right now, when it come budget time, like it or not, we're not going to have a whole lot of credibility. But anyway, I want everybody to remember that come budget time, we can fund the teachers first, and anything else that's left, we can do. Thank you.
Mrs. Hill.
I'll let Tiffany talk since she was on and then off and then on.
So I think this is we're going into my fourth budget season. I know for several of us. This is very typical of what happens in our budget seasons where we don't know exactly what we're going to have come February, and then we have a overage of money, and we're lucky to be able to put it somewhere. So I just wanted to at least point that out. I definitely agree with Rhonda that, our teachers should be coming first, but we also have to keep in mind that our budget cycle is not, just black and white. It in some ways is gray because we know that we're not going to get less than what we got last year from the county, but we never know what we're going to have as an overage, or we never know exactly how our numbers are going to shake out. Am I correct on that, Brent? Would you agree with that? And so, we've all now had a number of budget cycles under our belt in this position, and we're going to run into this every year. So I'm grateful that we're putting it toward the teachers, of course. 110% support this, but it's never as black and white as we want it to be. I just wanted to at least point that out because it's important that the public hears that and that the media picks that up, because the narrative should not be that, we are doing something that we just knew that we could and we chose not to, because that's not the story.
So just briefly, when I think about $411 million, that's a heck of a lot of money to me, and it's a lot to get my head around. And when people started talking about it, when Brian brought this idea, I said, people are going to be skeptical. They're going to say all the things that people have said. And money doesn't just fall out of the sky. We all know that. I have yet to walk outside and it just land in my lap. So it didn't fall out of the sky, right? We have more revenue than we thought we did. Well, so what I started doing was taking a bunch of zeros off of this to make this real for me. And maybe it'll help make it real for some other people. If you take $411 million and you swipe the zeros off, let's turn that into $41,100 in income a year. If we do that, this raise is going to cost us $300 of our income for the year. So what's happened is we have realized that we're making an extra $25 a month, and we've run in a tight budget, and we made our $25, and we start seeing, hey, we're 7 months in, and we've made $25 extra 7 months in a row. I run an Airbnb watercolor class. That's how I make my extra $25 a month. So if I make my $25 a month, I get to decide what I do with that. And we have a lot of priorities to move forward at any given time, just the way that every one of us on this board and every one of you out here has priorities to move forward. You got to feed your kids. You got to get a babysitter. You got to pay your life insurance, whatever it might be. It's all out there. So you got $25 extra a month. You get to decide how to use that toward a goal. You know, we have a savings account. So we essentially, in this zero swiping clarifying, we have $3,200 in a savings account. For Hamilton County Schools, that's $32 million of unrestricted emergency fund money for us. So in this scenario, as a real person, this is what these numbers look like. And I think given the fact that we're moving on some other priorities, it makes sense to take that $25 a month out of a $41,100 a year income and use it for something that's really important.
Dr. Highlander.
Thank you. I've not run a business like Jenny where the money falls out on top of her, but
I assured you it did not fall out.
okay.
It takes a heck of a lot of hard work.
She earned it. I'm sure all the millions she's got, I'm sure. And I appreciate it. I'm glad you've got them, ma'am. Now, I'm not a business person. I am a teacher, but one of the things I've taught is economics. And I'm certainly not a CPA nor even a business major like Dr. Johnson. But I will say, correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, that we get allotments twice a year. Is that correct? Possibly mid-year around July and again in December, January. Is that correct? From government, am I not correct?
So we actually receive, well, we don't receive, the Hamilton County trustee receives property and sales taxes on a monthly basis. For property taxes in particular, the largest are twice a year, especially around this time of year when property taxes are due, but sales taxes do come monthly.
Yeah, that's basically, I was referring to primarily property taxes. And so we are in a very positive upcycle right now. And if you study economics, you've got peaks and valleys, and we've been on a peak for about 8 years. And I am so thankful for that we've gotten growth money. And I'm so thankful that, and as Ms. Robinson said, we will never get less. We're guaranteed you get the same amount. And I'm sure you've based a lot of it on that. And I just thought the general public may not understand that they may fault you for bad predictions, and you don't really know until those property taxes come in semi-annually, basically exactly what we're going to get. And I applaud you for sticking close to it and looking at it. I'm just hoping and praying that we can stay on a positive economic basis and the economy does not go into a valley, because we'll have to make modifications if we get into an economic valley. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Highlander. One thing I would mention is when looking at the projections at this time of year, one thing we haven't collected yet is sales taxes for December. That's the largest month for sales taxes. I'm still, so I'm being conservative to say that we're going to have $3 million additional revenue. We may very well have more because December was a big spending month in this economy. So there still is a level of conservatism applied to the projections so that we don't end up in the hole. And it's very likely we may collect $5 million more than we budgeted, but we're saying we think we'll have 3. So we're not overshooting.
Thank you.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I think, Brent, you told us the other day it was going to be $4 million next year added to the budget. Is that correct?
$4 million on top of the 3.
Yeah.
For $7 million total.
For $7 million total.
Raise.
Okay. And then I just also want to be very cautionary as well. We just assume we're going to get all the growth money from the county, but they don't have to let us have it. And so we just need to be very cautious of that as well.
All right, I think we're ready to vote. Mrs. Ford, we didn't have a motion?
Put that back on the agenda.
Oh, sorry. Do we have a motion to put that back on? Dr. Highlander, do you?
Put it back on the agenda and approve.
Didn't we?
Make the motion to approve, to put this back on the agenda.
Second.
Dr. Highlander.
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Lennon.
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, down to administrative business matters. We've got the recommendation of 7-month extension for our custodial contract. Is Mr. Wood here to speak to that?
No, sir. I'm going to take that if you're okay.
Yeah, let me see if we can get a motion to approve first, and then we might.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Dr. Robertson.
Sure,
go
this
ahead.
is the 7-month extension on the ABM custodial contract. It's under the same current agreement that we have. We had an option to extend it 2 years. We're recommending a 7-month extension through December 31st, 2021. The only additional cost is the CPI increase of 2% that's always in the contract. Recommending approval.
Okay, Mrs. Lennon.
So no so we're not going to have RFP out?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm sorry, I should have talked about this.
She missed Monday.
We talked about this Monday. This allows us time to put a really good RFP, and at the same time looking at the option of going to a hybrid model to where maybe we're employing the main custodian in-house and outsourcing the rest of it, or even looking at bringing this completely in-house. So working closely with Mr. Goldberg to see what options we have, but this 7-month will allow us to explore those options and also put a really good RFP out there to make sure we get the best service possible.
So we're keeping ABM for an additional 7 months without doing an RFP and even asking anybody to come in?
Correct. So the current contract, we have the option to extend it for 2 years, and we're not doing that. We're only recommending to extend it for June through December of this current calendar year. And at that point, we'll work on the RFP, but then also work on the numbers to see what it would cost to bring all this in-house or to do a hybrid model to bring some of it in-house.
Can I ask why we just don't do an RFP now to try to get somebody to come in?
So a couple things talked about. Number one, thought about this at length in terms of cutting this off and bringing in a new vendor starting June 1st. June and July are critical months in terms of cleaning and getting schools ready for the open of a new school year. I know there are pros and cons to doing it that we talked about on Monday, but we felt like the pros of extending it and not bringing in a new vendor in June outweigh the cons. We have ABM. They basically have 7 months to prove their worth. We think we'll get a very good cleaning over the summer and already have put some plans in place to where there'll be a contract signed between the principal and the manager of the region to ensure that happens over summer. So that's one big reason. And the other one, thinking about if we maybe extended it to July, didn't think that we would get great cleaning service. We think that December is the best time to do it in terms of timing, but also in terms of getting an RFP the way we want it.
Well, I mean, I just remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that we were supposed to to do this when I first got on the board, and we forgot to put an RFP out to get a new, and we forgot, and so that's why we still have ABM, and that's, and I'm not, in any way, shape, or form, this is, I just feel like we're not doing our due diligence in getting the RFP out, because that's one of the biggest complaints that I have with some of our schools is the cleaning is not up to par. I get it a lot. And I feel like that, I think that that's just something that I talk, when I go to TSBA conference, I talk to people all the time. I get emails that there are people that want to submit RFP to have our contract. I mean, I get it all the time, and I just feel like that we are not allowing people they want to Hamilton County schools, and I don't think we are giving them an opportunity to come into Hamilton County. They like, hey, we're a hot item right now. They want, they want our business, and I feel like that we're not allowing them to do that right now, and I think that we should.
Yeah, and I completely hear you. I remember that conversation vividly, and that's not what we're doing. We're actually trying to honor that and trying to put the best RFP out there that we can. Even if we were to put an RFP out there, I would still be recommending that we change the timing of it, because I think the timing is a problem. I know we could go back and forth about when's the best time to go to a new vendor. In my opinion, we've talked internally about it, the best time would be December and not going in May. We will put an RFP out there. We will. I've already had some of those people that y'all spoken to reached out for meetings coming up, and as soon as this vote happens, we start working on the RFP, we'll start having those meetings to talk to vendors. I will point out, ABM's been doing a very good job trying to improve the quality of service. In January, put out a survey to principals, and I think 64 principals responded to it, and it was a 90% satisfaction rate. And I challenged the principals pretty strongly yesterday in a principals meeting to say, it's very difficult for me to sit in front of a board to say, man, we need to get a better vendor when 90% of you are saying that they're doing a good job.
And so we've had that, to Justin's point, we've had that conversation very candidly with Principal Association, and actually probably about 3 months ago had ABM in with the principals from the Principal Association present. The other thing that's going on as well, you may have spoke to this, I'm sorry to step out real quick, as you speak to us trying to look at a hybrid model.
Yes,
and also an internal, so we're trying to do that concurrently, but this is really not a matter of us being behind. It's really a transition timeline and trying to look at the most mindful transition timeline for what has to get done through the course of the year.
Ms. Robinson.
Yep. Kathy has been very passionate about this. I know because she texts me and calls me. No, I'm just kidding. But on Monday, we did have a really in-depth conversation about this, and sorry I didn't get to catch up with you on it. But I think that 10%, though, that you've said exists, the 90% approve, the 10% don't approve. I feel passionate about this too with Kathy, especially because this is our, I think, second largest expense or vendor expense that we have on our books. But then there's also possibly a disconnect of ownership when it comes to having maybe a full-time custodian in our school. But maybe the hybrid is really addressing the 10%, and maybe that's a good strategy for how we look at some type of hybrid model. So at least wanted to mention that. But I agree with Kathy that an RFP process is very important. Agree with you, though, that the timing is really important and that we've got to be mindful of that. But I am excited that we're looking at how can we either create a hybrid model or bring this in-house, because for a district our size, it could be very impactful to have those people really taking ownership of our schools.
I agree. The only thing I would mention, you may have mentioned this, is that whether you do hybrid or internal, it's going to cost more probably than it is to have this contracted out. So it's an investment, but it absolutely is. This is a lot of school system our size go to custodial contracts with third parties because it's a cost saving measure. You want to?
Yeah. Yeah. When we outsourced to begin with, it was because of cost savings. The two primary costs that we'll have to really look at are the cost of benefits for these full-time employees that would become full-time employees, and also the cost of supplies. So because ABM is such a large vendor, they're able to buy supplies much cheaper than we would be able to. So, and then of course, the third thing is we have to decide what we're going to pay as a minimum pay rate for the employees. And that also changes the model. So it would likely cost more if we did a full in-house model, if nothing else, because of the cost of benefits. But everything's a choice, right? Do we value that service and that the employees would provide in a way that would encourage us to provide benefits to these employees and bring them in full in-house employees?
Mr. McClendon.
I know this conversation on Monday, did we talk to ABM since then about another survey? Because I know that number was 92%.
That's a new survey.
That they're doing one, or they're...
No. The January was in response to the conversation that had then, and we're bringing a new one back at the end of this year.
Was the survey you spoke of the one that was still tied to their compensation?
No.
Okay.
And we addressed that with regional vice president, and that no longer is a practice. I think there were good intentions and why he was trying that, but recognized after our conversation, and they're no longer doing that.
Gotcha. Next question is for Scott. The RFP we have on here was from 2013. We don't have the contract in our packet, but it was 2013. Guessing it was a 4 or 5 year contract to begin with. Then I'm guessing there was a 2-year extension.
There's been 2 years extensions.
It's 4.
You're right.
So are we
Are we okay?
Because I know we've had conversations in the past where after a certain amount of years plus an extension, we automatically have to rebid.
Well, so what Tennessee law requires us to do is to put a notice out about how long we intend to bind the bidder, and how long we intend to be bound. And so I actually I don't have our original RFP to look at. But it's not uncommon to say 4 years, and then we will renew for a period of an additional 4 years to provide for stability. Now, what that ends up doing, the reason you don't do that very often is it skews the cost of your contract up, because people are bidding based, they do one of two things. Either they put in a CPI, which some boards don't like, because you're having to speculate about what insurance cost, what inflation is going to be 4 years from now, or you put a figure in there that is artificially high in anticipation of being extended, and have your feet held to the fire. So without having it in front of me, I can't tell you, but I would bet, knowing Gary Waters and how he would put together these RFPs, he reserved the right for the board to extend for a period of up to 4 years. So you've got the original 4-year term plus 4 years. If that was put out there and people said, yeah, we want part of that action, it's fine. Or if they could have said, you know what, we don't want that kind of risk, it's fine. Now, that said, going forward, I don't know that I'd recommend that y'all do that, just because, well, I mean, the board may go in a different direction anyway. But in this kind of environment, I'm recommending folks look really hard at the inflation factor and push back on that pretty hard.
Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, Justin, I know, bringing it back in-house, because I was here when we took it and bid
Yes,
it
ma'am.
out. It really did work a lot better when it was in-house, but I know it's a lot more expensive. In the RFP, can we ask that they would have like maybe just a chief custodian in each school, and then they could hire some other people under
Right.
them
And so
to help? Can we write the RFP that way?
we can. I mean, we've got to do a cost analysis. What we'll bring back to the board is basically the options of saying, okay, this is what it would cost to do completely in-house. Here's what it would cost to have a head custodian that's our employee, and then to contract out the rest of the services. And here's what it would cost to completely bid it out.
Mrs. Lennon.
And I'm just going to say one more thing about the condition of some of the bathrooms and some of the schools, and I'll show you the pictures after the meeting.
I've seen every
Okay.
single one of them.
And I know that change is hard, but I think it is time to look at change. Because I know that it's really hard. It might not be the perfect timing, but it's never perfect timing. But I think that it is time to visit change of, we'll see what's out there. It's time to look what's out there. But it's just my opinion, what I wanted to say.
And Ms. Lennon, I don't want you to misunderstand this process. This is not about saying that I think personally that ABM is, you can call Scott Stewart and ask him. I've probably been harder on him in the last month than anyone we've dealt. We've walked through buildings and we've looked at floors, we looked at restrooms, and I've showed him exactly what I feel like is not acceptable. And so this is not about saying that I think ABM is doing a great job or that we should keep them long term. But I think that anytime you go through change, and especially something like this, we need to do it in a way that's at least disruptive, and so that schools can stay focused on teaching and learning. And I truly believe that putting this through to December is the right transition period, and then we go find the best service that we can.
RFP will be coming next month with those three options.
Right.
All right, Mrs. Ford.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon,
No.
Mr. McClendon,
No.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Brings us to board matters. The appointment of management personnel for PECA. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second. Second.
Okay, Mrs. Thurman.
Yeah, just, I talked to Jeanette about this the last time I did, on Monday night. I did have some teachers contact me and said they'd like to see a non-HCA teacher back on the board, and you said that was being, you're working on that. Okay, I just want them to know that I did ask. It's okay.
There will be before we start meeting.
Mrs. Lennon. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill,
Yes.
Mrs. Jones. Sorry. Mrs. Lennon,
Yes.
Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. All right, brings us down to under item B1 there, the widening, the easement for Ferdinand Peak Way. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? I've got just a quick question. Would you just quickly explain again what's going on, Dr. Robertson, why we're doing this?
Yes, sir. So this is the road that runs in front of the new elementary school, Harrison Elementary, and it's an easement to widen that road. Right now, I think it's currently set at 2 lanes, and it's to widen it to help ease the traffic as parents are coming in and out of that school. So there's I believe, a permanent slope and drainage easement, and then a temporary construction easement.
Okay, Dr. Highlander.
I'm very familiar with that community, and if we don't do that, it's going to be a horrible traffic nightmare. And so, I mean, I drive through there every day, and it's essential that we do this. I'm backing you up, Justin.
Mrs. Thurman?
But Justin, this is the city's doing this, correct? It's not necessarily us.
I asked that the other night, and I think that I may have answered wrong. So the city's doing the construction. It's a city road, but I think because of the park, there's some cooperation with the county, but the city will own the road.
But it's
and I
not
think
us that has having to pay
that's
for it.
correct.
Okay, just want everybody to understand that. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay, Miss.
Dr. Highlander,
Yes.
Mrs. Hill.
Yes.
Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Lennon, Mr. McClendon.
Yes.
Mrs. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Thurman,
Yes.
Chairman Wingate.
Yes. Okay. Lastly there, just board policy first reading there. Anybody a question there of Dr. Edwards pertaining to that, or any comments on that board policy? Mrs. Hill.
I know that this is at the end of a really long meeting, and I want to make sure that the students and families that have worked so hard, professionals have worked so hard on this policy, understand that we know that it's very, very important. This is a first reading, and we'll continue to study it. My understanding from Nakia is that some of the students that presented to us earlier have been part of the conversation with our equity team on how to really craft something that is adequate and appropriate and potentially, hopefully, therapeutic. So thanks for this work, Nakia.
I had similar thoughts to Jenny. I just wanted to make sure that the students were aware, and I wasn't aware that they were working directly with you on it. That's wonderful, and I think this is a great example of how we can have our ears open and our hearts and our minds open to our students giving us feedback. So thank you for this work. I think that's very important to have student voice.
All right, brings us to events and announcements there. 24th, we're going to have a community budget meeting at Central High School at 6 o'clock. 25th, another community budget meeting at Sequoia High at 6 o'clock. March 2nd, again, another community budget meeting at Signal Mountain at 6. March 3rd will be a board work session around MGT's final report. March the 10th will be the scope trip to Middle Tennessee State University. Also March 10th, partnership network meeting at Dalewood Middle School at 5 o'clock. March 13th is going to be the end of the third quarter for our students. March 16th will be our next agenda session at 5. And then also March 16th will be teacher professional development, no students on that day. March 18th, SAC meeting at Central High School at 5 o'clock. And our next formal board meeting, March the 19th. And also a board work session on that day for proposed strategic financial planning. Any other events or announcements? Yes, Mrs. Jones.
I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Johnson on his Education Week Leaders to Learn 2020 recognition. That's all I wanted. Congratulations.
Dr. Johnson.
If I could real quick, I want to thank each of you on this board for giving me the opportunity to continue the work. We look forward to continuing to serve children and teachers and leaders in the community, and humbled by all that's transpired over the last couple of days. And so thank you. I also want to say that on Saturday, one thing we left off, we've got a teacher recruitment event Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. At Ooltewah High School. Anybody interested in teaching, please show up, and we look forward to the event.
All right, meeting adjourned.